Good morning, afternoon, and or evening to all those who are tuning in, and welcome back to the VBMA podcast. In this episode, I had the opportunity to chat with an international speaker, author, and media personality. He's the founder of the Uncharted Veterinary Conference and podcast, as well as the Cone of Shame podcast. Today, you'll learn all about who this individual is and how he got introduced to the VBMA. He talked about his role in acquiring sponsors for the VBMA and how that changed what we were able to do moving forward. Diving a little bit deeper into our conversation, we got to chatting about why it is so important to figure out what you are good at and enjoy in this field, and then to be able to do this over and over again. This conversation led us to discussing that we, as soon-to-be veterinarians or already veterinarians, have the ability to do what we want in our jobs and exnaying all of those things we don't enjoy. He mentioned that we should define happiness in our expectations, while knowing that in this field there's pain baked into all of it. There is, as he said, joy through the struggle. And I don't want to give away any more information about this episode, so with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Andy Roark.
You're listening to the VBMA podcast.
Hey,
How you doing, Dr. Roark? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Good to see you also. How are we, how are things?
Good. Considering the world is slowly starting to open back up, I'd say things are going pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I heard you've had quite a busy day.
It's been a day. It's been a day. I just spilled my smoothie. It's that kind of day.
Oh no, it's a spill the
No.
smoothie type of day.
I know. I was like, oh, my smoothie. That's been my day.
Yeah, it's okay. I spilled salsa the other day all over my white shorts, so I'm gonna.
Oh yeah, that's the kind of day.
Yeah.
That's the kind of day.
Salsa smoothie days. You know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
Well,
cool.
I appreciate you doing this. This is great. I mean, considering you're one of the biggest pioneers for the VBMA, I figured it would be adequate to talk to you first. I
Okay.
thought that would be appropriate. But yeah, let's jump right into it.
Okay,
So
sounds good.
yeah, so you kind of started, I guess, marketing or for yourself, the VBMA. You really brought a lot of attention to the organization, and I just kind of want to take it back to square one. Where did it
Mhm.
start before vet school? What made you want to join the VBMA vet school, and why are you doing what you're doing now?
Yeah. I'm not sure I have real good answers for those questions. I took a course in entrepreneurship before vet school, just kind of as a lark. I was in grad school at Florida. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, and so I went to grad school to get a PhD because I want to be a college professor. That's what I thought. And I got there and I met my wife, so it was worth the trip. But I didn't really love academia the way that I had hoped. I definitely liked teaching. I just realized that teaching was a very small part of what you did, in that job. And I was like, well, this is the rest of the stuff is the majority of my day, and it's not fun for me. So anyway, so I had left and applied to vet school. And while I was a grad student, though, I could take whatever courses I wanted. And I was like, oh, if there's other things I might want to learn, I can take them for free now. If I can just somehow link them back to my study. And so somehow I figured out how to justify that entrepreneurship was useful to a zoologist. And I took some entrepreneurship, this entrepreneurship course. And so that's as much as I had going in. And in hindsight, I'm not exactly sure what I did. I think that I thought that I might own a vet practice one day. That was the plan. And so I went there, and so I was at Florida, go Gators, and it was like the first week of class, and this guy gets up. So they're doing the thing at the vet school where all the student clubs stand up and talk about like, oh, join the canine club or the shelter club. And this guy stands up. He's super introverted. His name is Mike Wong. He's a neurologist. He owns a bunch of neurology practices in Florida now. And so he was a senior, and when I was a first year, and he stands up and he's just real low key, and he goes, so I got this new club. It's called the Veterinary Business Management Association, and it just started. And if you want to be a part of it, just let me know, and we're gonna talk about business and stuff. And as soon as we were done, I like ran to the library and banged out an email. I was like, look, dude, I know everybody else is contacting you, but I'm your guy. I want to be a part of this. And he wrote back, he was like, no one else has contacted me. And, and that was my introduction to the BBA. And so I was like, I am in. I don't know. I was just like, yes, I want to own my own practice. That's what I want. And this thing is brand new and just open. He was kind of like, oh, we're going to figure out what to do. And I'm like, I know what to do. And so yeah, I was just totally in there. And yeah, it was kind of one of those things where I grabbed the steering wheel and nobody really wrestled it away from me. And so I just kind of got to do what I wanted. And he was super awesome and really gung ho about jumping in and doing the work. He's exactly what you want in a surgeon who's does not get pressured, does not sweat, does not get stressed. He's just doing my neurology thing. And that's how he was when we got started. So he's been wildly successful. We still talk quite a bit, but he's a great guy. But yeah, he was the guy who brought it. He was at the original VBMA meeting when people decided they were going to make it a thing.
I was going to say that name sounds very familiar because I think their practice has the best marketing out of any veterinary practice I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So he knew what he was doing.
Uncharted members. So when we started the Uncharted group, so it was some live events and virtual community and stuff. Mike and his gang were right there at the very beginning, and he's just been super progressive the whole way. But yeah, their marketing is real good, real good.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have necessarily a strong interest in neurology, but after following the page for so long, I'm like, well, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah,
I shouldn't be a neurologist, but I see
Yeah.
that page. I'm like, wow, that's motivating.
Yeah. They do great. Yeah, they do great work. He's really got a vision. So yeah, his practice has been amazing to watch it grow. He's a neat guy. And it's called Southwest Veterinary Neurology for anybody who's interested in seeing what we're talking about. But yeah, they got great social media stuff. You'll see Mike, he does some Facebook lives and stuff. And yeah, you'll see it. But he's really fantastic. And like I said, he's attracting neurologists and starting new facilities and and putting the guys, like I talked to him and I'm like, oh, I wonder what we should charge for ultrasounds. And he's like, I'm buying an MRI machine. It's my fourth one. Like whatever it is. It's so next level. I'm sorry, I don't know what to talk to you about.
It's like, yeah, you get an MRI machine for $250,000 and everyone's worried about their $20,000 ultrasound machine. You're like, oh my gosh. It is really next level though. It's pretty cool. So you joined your board, right? You joined the board because of a very vanilla Dr. Michael, correct? Dr. Mike.
So yeah. So for the chapter, Mike was just Dr. Wong was getting the thing up and getting going, and so I just jumped in with him, and there were a couple other people who came in who were awesome. So we just had a little group, and it was just getting started, and it was the very beginning of the VBMA, and like literally it was like the first year of the VBMA, and so we just kind of did the basic thing of being like, okay, we got a little bit of budget. Hills had given some money to the National VBMA, and they were pretty much like, yeah, you can give this to your chapters. And then VPI, Vet Pet Insurance, which is now nationwide, they had given some money as well. So between Hills and VPI, you kind of had this budget, right? And so you gave the budget and to the chapters, and the chapters were supposed to take the budget and put on events with it. And it was supposed to be what they gave you was supposed to last for the year. And I got a hold of the budget and spent it in the first 3 weeks of the year. And so I spent the whole budget. And so then I was like, well, this is going to be a short semester for us if I don't figure something else out. And so if there was anything that I kind of brought to the VBMA, I guess this is the thing that I would say. If someone brought something to the VBMA, this is what I brought. I think I was the first guy to look at the VBMA and at the vet students there and say, I can find sponsors who will support education in this topic, because at the time it's gotten a lot better as far as the amount of business education and communication training and stuff that vet students get. It was much less. And of course the industry knew that. They were like, it helps us to have business savvy veterinarians running their practices because they'll do more business and they'll use more of our products. And this is a good investment. And I can make that case and say, hey, look, you're making better veterinarians who are going to run better businesses, and they're probably going to sell more of whatever product X is, or they're going to use more of your diagnostic services or whatever it is. But I don't know that anybody had really been out making that case for student groups before. And so that was a thing that I just kind of threw in and said, well, I'm just going to find these guys and shake them down for money so that we can do business education. And I don't know. It was super fun. And I think there was a challenge to it. And I think I love the idea of getting people to agree to give us money to do this thing that was awesome. And before you know it, I was like, I was cold calling people and trying to get introduced to people. I'd wait for like I'd be at a conference and I would see someone who works for like, for Royal Canin, and I would dive into the elevator. It was as it was closing, so I could just trap them one-on-one and talk to them. And I had literally doing the elevator pitch, like, what? They're like, what floor are you getting off on? I'm like, I don't know what floor are you getting off on. And like it was that. But it was this fun thing that I just love to do. And then we ended up drumming up a bunch of money to do a bunch of programs and stuff. And then the next year was the third year that the VBMA existed, and I decided to throw my name in the ring for to be the national VBMA president. And that was it. And our big push was, hey guys, I'm going to teach the other chapters how to get sponsorship to support the educational programs that you want to do. And then, and I said, we'll take the national organization and we'll start trying to get some sponsorship at a high level. And Hills, like I said, Hills and VPI had both been there and were both really, really amazing from the very beginning. But we really wanted to expand that and try to get resources for the chapters. And so that was kind of where I got into it. We, just happened to be at the very beginning too. So we had new chapters coming online. And I think I sort of got some credit for that stuff, which had nothing to do with me, but it was just being early in the organization, growing, and we were very visible. So I think that was a big jumping off point for my career, but it was also just a lot of luck and timing.
Yeah, and so you're able to cover your initial losses that you'd spent in 3 weeks very quickly with diving into elevators.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't overspend. I just ran out. We were just out of money. So we were going to be doing some low cost. We had expenses other people didn't have, and so we had this thing. It was called the no pizza rule, and this came from she was Dr. Megan Wood. She was Megan Stalker back when she's in vet school, but Megan Wood. She had this rule. So she's the founder of the VBMA, of the whole thing. And she had this rule that the other clubs all order pizza for their meetings. So they have a meeting to have pizza. And we're the business club. And so we should be better than that. Like we should show that, like, that's how we should do this. And it's just this thing that, if you come to the business club, we have better food because of how we run our organization. And that was like her thing. And I just kind of bought into it. And I was like, all right, we're not going to have pizza. And so everybody else was getting, Little Caesars 2 for 2 for, and we were bringing in chopsticks, Chinese food. And that was and now I think the whole vet student group of food arms race has gotten to this high level, but it didn't at first. Everyone else had pizza except the VBMA that had Indian food. And people were just like, what is that? And like, yeah, that was the big deal. Like that was the thing that we really went hard in the paint to get the sandwich bar.
I think that's funny that you bring that up, because that was one of the two first things that I noticed. First thing I noticed, one, was I go to all these club meetings because when you're a first year vet student, you want to join every club, right? Because every club's awesome. Yeah. So I'm over here going to every club, and they're like, we'll give you free pizza. I'm like, okay, great. I have no money. I'm going to go eat a ton of pizza. And then after a week, your stomach hates you because you've been.
You're 22. You can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I went to the VBMA. And I think they had Panda Express or something else. And they were like, yeah, eat however much you want. And I was like, listen, I'm going to eat all of this if you don't stop me. And that was one. That's funny you bring that up, because I remember.
Oh, yeah. You like Panda Express? If you owned your own practice, you could have as much
You
Panda
can,
Express as you wanted. We can help you get there.
I think I think the second thing that really stuck out to me when I first joined was, there's this huge stigma in the field that, oh, you're never going to make any money. You're going to be in debt for the rest of your life up to your eyeballs. You're never going to do okay. The culture's toxic. Everything's terrible. And, for some reason, we all still keep going into it because we're like,
Oh
it's
yeah,
fine.
that's
Like,
not
it's
good for
fine. Like,
that.
no, we don't have to worry about that. And I remember the first VBMA lecture. I don't even remember this guy's name, but I should. And he told everybody, he said, anybody that has ever told you you're never gonna make any money has never known anything about business. They don't know anything about practice ownership. They don't know anything about contract negotiation. And from that point on, I was kind of hooked. But I
Mhm.
I also felt bad because my whole college career was me crapping on my fraternity friends for being all business majors. And I was like, that
Mhm.
sounds terrible. And now here I am. That's all I want to do. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh God,
yeah.
write all these sorry letters. But you have taken a whole new twist since the VBMA, because what you've done with your career and your marketing and how you're able to stay so enthusiastic to students, to
Yeah.
doctors, it just created a new culture. And I'm
Mhm.
like, how do you keep that culture going? Like, how do you just keep
Oh,
that on?
well, it's super easy. There's two pieces. There's two pieces to it. The first piece that is absolutely central and core is uh figure out what you enjoy and what you're good at, and then figure out how to do more of it, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And that shouldn't be mind blowing to people, but it is, because a lot of people are like, oh no, I came to vet school, so I'm going to be a vet and I have to do all the vet stuff. And I'm like, no, you don't. You can do the vet stuff that you like. And they're like, but no, I have to, like, I don't, like, I have to do surgery. I'm like, no, you don't. And I had this lady wrote me an email, and so she writes me an email. So I get emails from vets sometimes, which is great. I people feel like they know me, which is awesome, and they feel they want to talk to somebody, and so sometimes I get emails, and that's fine. And so this lady writes to me, and I've never met her, and she says, Dr. Roark, you don't know me, but I'm really stressing out. And she says, I'm my husband is moving, and I'm moving with him, and I am terrified because I get panic attacks around surgery. I don't like surgery. It makes me stressed out. I don't sleep the night before surgery. I'm getting anxious thinking about surgery right now. And when I move with my husband, I'm going to have to get a job, and they're going to make me do surgery, and it's going to be terrible. And and I feel like I'm moving and I'm going to have this real big strike against me. Do you have any advice? And I wrote back to her and I said, I'm sorry, I believe you're mistaken. I'm not sorry. I'm good news. Congratulations, you're wrong. Um, do you know how many doctors would love to just stay in surgery and let other people see appointments all day? Like, do you know how many practice owners would love to just hand over their appointment spots to someone else and stay in the back? And they would fight to the death for that. It's not a flaw, it's a feature. And so she's here freaking out because she didn't want to do surgery. Like, it's a bad thing. I'm like, that's a good thing. Lead with that. Don't hide that. That's not like oh, by the way. That's like an opening statement. Like, hey, I'm a medicine doctor, and I'm interested in working in your exam rooms and not in your surgery suite. And like, that's a strong opening position, and people will flock to that. I tell that story because I think that it's true, and it's true in a lot of different ways where people feel like they have to be all things to all people, and you just don't. You know, the big, if you like managing the staff, work to that, play to that, train to that, and then spend less time doing surgery and more time running a staff. And if you like doing surgery, work to that, play to that, train to that, build that experience, take those workshops, lean into that, get more surgery time, get faster, get better, and then you'll spend less time doing other things, like, just lean into that. Like, we don't get ahead by focusing on the things we're bad at. I think a lot of people think we do. It's like, you need to figure out how to either just bandage that weakness, or even better, just divert away from it so that it's not exposed. And I'll give you an example. I'm an idea guy. I like to do things. I like to make things. I'm not the most organized guy. I've built a lot of systems over the years to that work for me. And so I've got at this point, I got a lot of systems that work really well, but I'm still at my heart, I'm not an organized guy. I'm not a detail guy. I don't like paperwork, things like that are just like the things that are required that I hate that stuff. And so what did I do? I hired an assistant 5-6 years ago, and she's full time with me and is today. I couldn't live without her. But she's amazing. She has access to my inbox. You know what I mean? Like when you emailed me about being on this podcast, she was the one who probably responded to you and said, "Sure, he'll do it. Here's the schedule. He loves this stuff." And bang, and got it scheduled and on the calendar and everything. So you can do that. That's legal. There's not like people are like, you can't do that. Yes, you can. It's not even unethical. It is totally legal and ethical, and you can totally do it. But that's the point. Is you want to stay excited, you want to stay involved. Figure out what you enjoy doing, and figure out how to do more of it. And figure out what you don't like doing, and delegate that mess. Get somebody else to do it. Hire it away, or outsource it. Do whatever. Use freaking Fiverr. Use 99 Designs. Use Upwork. Whatever you want. Like, just be creative. You can get virtual CSRs to help answer the phone from afar. Like, it's just the possibilities are endless. My whole staff. I've got 4 full-time employees. Only one of them is local. The other 3 work across the country, and they're full-time for me. It doesn't bother me at all. They love it. They work from home. Like you can make crazy things happen if you want to. So that's number one, right? Figure out what you like and do more of it. The other part is you should always have something that you just enjoy working on. And I think that's a lot of it is you need to work. You need to be tinkering. And a lot of people want to just they're like, oh, I'm busy or I'm stressed, so I can't do these other things. And so I'll go back to the VBMA as example. And one time the dean at the vet school kind of pulled me off to the side, and he said, I was the national VBMA president. And he said, Andy, if you spent less time doing this business stuff and more time on your studies, you would be a better student. And I was like, well, thanks for thanks for that. I appreciate it. I think it's going to be okay. And, and
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and he was right. Well, he was. I think he thinks he's right, and maybe he was right to a degree. What I would say is, I was working as hard as I was going to work on school. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I had worked as hard as I was going to work on school. I think if I had done less VBMA stuff, I would have played more Call of Duty, in place of it. Like, I think that's where my time would have gone. Is not to like, oh, my study would increase. If I did less VBMA, I would have done more other thing. I don't know. Maybe I'd taken up painting. I don't know. But I wasn't studying more.
You're killing me because that's exactly all I do whenever I'm not doing school or VBMA is just Call of Duty. So you're really
right. So if you cut your VBMA down, I don't think spoiler alert. I don't think your schoolwork is going to go up. I don't think cutting down the VBMA is going to jettison you up to the valedictorian spot. And maybe I'm wrong, but for me, that was not the case. And so the VBMA was this thing that I worked on that made me happy and it made me excited. And I got up and I looked forward to things. Like, everybody should get out of bed and look forward to something. And if you get out of bed and you're like, I'm not looking forward to anything, it's a problem. It doesn't have to be anything massive. It can be the social event of the weekend, or it could be that you just bought some new paints and paint brushes, or it could be the CrossFit Open is coming up and you're super into CrossFit. And like, that's a thing. Like, what I would say to you is being excited about the CrossFit Open is good for your career as a veterinarian. Right. And it's just because I think it's important to have that thing. You go, I'm excited about this. And what you'll find is if there's something that you're excited about and you enjoy doing, you tend to be excited and enjoy doing other things. I just really feel strongly that everybody should have it. You should always have a project that you're working on. I mean, it could be like, I'm starting a vegetable garden. That's great, man. If you're excited to get up and start that damn vegetable garden. And at this point, a lot of people are probably like, what is this guy talking about? I promise, like that is really it, is figure out in your career, figure out what you like to do and how to do more of it, and figure out what you don't like to do and figure out how to delegate it away, or just not do it, or just be able to just not have it be a part of your sphere. And the other part is you should have something else that you're working on that engages you, that you look forward to doing. And I feel like if you have those two things, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
I think you make a powerful point because I think that when you say people wake up and they're not looking forward to their day-to-day job, it's because they're doing part of what they love, but like you said, they're not outsourcing, they're not delegating, and they're doing all these other things that they hate, which sucks.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And that's not going to make you excited. That's not going to get you out of bed. I remember I woke up when I worked at an aquarium for free for a whole summer because all I wanted to do was get into vet school. I woke up and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And I would do this day in, day out for free for the rest of my life because I love
Yeah.
it. And then I was like, oh, this is what I need to find for the rest of my life is something like this.
Yeah. So there's two points I would make to that, right? Number one is the grass grows where you water it, right? The grass grows where you water it. And so if you get up and you go, oh, I got to do these things. Look, everybody's got to do crappy things. Like, trust me, like we all have to do crappy things. If you get up and you think about the crappy things you have to do, then that's going to set a tone for you and for your day. And if you think up and be like, what am I looking forward to? Like the end of the day, the end of the day is coming, or the end of the week is coming, or Friday I get to do this, or Saturday I am going to do this fun thing. Man, on Tuesday I will be like, what am I looking forward to? And I'll think about the thing on Saturday and be like, yeah, that's coming. That's going to be good. And like, it's just this sort of North Star that kind of guides you. The other thing is there's a story that I like. So there's a story. So I don't know what the story comes from. I tend to pick up stories as I go along. So here's this story, right? And so there's this kid, and the kid goes to the park and plays in the sandbox. And every day the kid goes to the park and plays in the sandbox. And every day has a great time. Just gets in there and just plays and has a wonderful time. And one day this guy comes up to the kid and says, hey, look, I love watching you play in the sandbox. It gives me joy. It sparks joy in my heart. And so I will give you $1 every day that you come here and play in the sandbox, just because I want you to keep playing in the sandbox because it's awesome. And so the kid goes, okay. And so for a couple of weeks, the kid shows up and just plays and has a big time in the sandbox. And every day the guy just gives him $1. And so then one day the kid shows up and he comes into the park and the man's there, and the kid walks over and sticks his hand out. And the man says, I don't have any more money. I'm sorry. And the kid says, well, I'm not going to play in the sandbox then. And I think about that story sometimes. And I do think that when we talk about vet medicine and when we talk about finding joy and happiness, there is something about getting swept up into the idea that this is a job and there's money tied to it, that can take away the magic of just being like, God, I can't believe I get to do surgery and fix this animal and it's going to walk out of here. Like, that is incredible. But that goes away when money's tied to it. And what I'm hearing, I'm not saying, oh, poo-poo your money concerns. Like, no, you don't need to get paid or to pay that student debt. No, I'm not saying that. But there is another point to it as well, where I say, money changes things, and it's easy to slip into the mindset of just looking at sort of the dollars and how this works, and just losing the magic and the enjoyment. And so, honestly, what's really interesting to me is in your story, Thomas, of the aquarium. Would you have enjoyed it that much if they had paid you? And I don't know the answer to that. You know what I mean? But at that point, would it have become a job? And then you would have been like, oh, this is different. I don't know. And I don't think it's really important for our conversation, but I just put that forward as like the real skill, I think, is to take the joy that you have in things you don't get paid for and somehow hold on to it when you do get paid for it. Like, that's the key to all this, right? If you could have that joy of like your hobby and hold on to the joy when there's money involved. And it's hard to do, right? The expectations change on those things, but like there's something there. There's like a childlike wonder about medicine that's really great if you can get it, where you're just like, I can't believe that people pay me to play with their brand new puppy dog. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough threshold, like you said. I mean, you gotta. I always tell people I'm looking for my job. What I get paid for is I want to feel how I felt as a kid on Christmas morning, and that is what I search for. Like that type of joy that I got waking up in the morning, because you hear so many people that are stuck in cubicles all day and hate their life.
Yeah.
And they like you said, you should look forward to things, but you shouldn't necessarily live for Saturdays. You should look forward to a few Saturdays, but you shouldn't be living every week for that weekend.
No, yeah, that's just, yeah. You should find enjoyment in what you do. Um, yeah, you should find enjoyment in what you do. The My dad always said, the key is to retire a little bit every day. And that's I think what he really meant was not to check out, but I think it was just to continue to do the things that you really like to do. And the other thing is nothing's guaranteed. You know what I mean? Like there none of us have any guarantees in this life. I mean, we just lived through a global pandemic. We were really lucky in that the demand for vet care went soaring. I mean, man, when I was just talking to one of my friends, and we were visiting together as the pandemic was starting, and she was like, she reminded me of our conversation, and we were like, what is this going to mean for us? And we were imagining a world where vet care demand goes to zero because everybody hunkers down and nobody goes out, and you know what I mean? Like no one's going to they're not going to pay for they're going to all be losing their jobs, and they're not going to pay for vet care and blah blah. And that's what we were imagining. It could have gone that way. Like that could have been it. And then all of our sweating and worrying about grades all goes out the window because none of us have a job anyway. And it's just none of it's guaranteed. So you really do have that joy. The one thing I would say, I guess I'm push back on you a little bit about the Christmas Day thing, right? Um, when when I have been most unhappy in vet medicine is when my sort of expectations of happiness have kind of gotten out of whack, right? And so what's funny is, I look at I look at the pictures of a happiness and what we think of when we think of like Christmas Day, and like, man, that was awesome because we had like no responsibilities. We come downstairs, there's gifts and like that is But the problem is if I take Christmas Day and I say that's what it means to be happy, then I'm very rarely going to be happy. And the truth is, with medicine, it's interesting because there's always challenges and struggle wrapped up into it, right? I never had to fight someone off to get my Christmas presents. You know what I mean? Like I never had to solve Santa's riddle or not get a present, and none of my presents died. Um, but that but that doesn't mean that I can't be happy in medicine. You know what I mean? Like that. I guess that's just sort of my thought there is like it's a more complex happiness that we have to look for. So the simple happiness is this is amazing. Look at this picture of me with the puppy and the kitten. But I look instead. So I had this dog that came in a couple months ago, and the owners had just adopted this dog like 3 weeks ago, and the dog's name was Roscoe. And so they just adopted this dog. Mom goes outside, opens the door. The dog shoots past her into the street, gets hit by the UPS truck. And so I see this person for the first time. Their first visit to the vet was with me, and I take X-rays of this dog, and his pelvis is broken, my broken pelvis, multiple fractures. And I have to go back and be like I can't. This is beyond my skills. I'm sorry, it just is. And so I go back to her. I'm like, I can't do this. And I said, what do you want to do? I can send you to the orthopedist. And I quoted her probably for $6,000, something like that. And I was like, that's probably about what it's going to be. And we talked about it, and she decided that she was going to go to the orthopedist. So she takes the dog, goes to the orthopedist. And then I get this email like a week or two later, and she writes it to me and the staff. And she's like, I just want to thank everyone who helped take care of Roscoe. We went to the orthopedist. Here's the pictures of him on his ride home. Here's him laying out in the sun. Like it's amazing the care that we got from you all, and the care we got from the referral facility was just wonderful. And we can't wait to come through and see everybody. And he's going to thank you himself. And I go, man, that's far from Christmas Day when you just walk downstairs and there's presents. There was some dicey times there, and like, man, I felt pretty crappy looking at those X-rays. But ultimately, you come back to this really beautiful, wonderful, great thing, and you go, that's it. And so the reason I sort of said that about being happy is I think sometimes we have to define what happiness is in our expectations. And I think in order to partly be happy in vet medicine, you have to know that there's pain baked in, right? Like what we do is just hard. And it's amazing how that kind of works together. But if you can kind of get your head around that idea of the joy through the struggle, I think that's where it really comes through. And you go, man, I love this profession at a deep level. Doesn't always make me happy. Doesn't you know what I mean? Like I can get real tired of it. but I think I deeply love it. And I think I deeply love it because I've had those struggles that have paid off, and I felt like I've really done something that mattered. It's almost like it's the difference in coming downstairs in the morning on Christmas Day and the difference in finishing a marathon or climbing to the top of a mountain where you're like, this is deeply rewarding and I hurt all over and I'm tired.
Oh, that's true. I like that perspective. That's awesome. And do,
Oh, I don't know.
do you think failure ties into that? I think it does. Like certain failures in your
Oh
profession.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that one of the things I have this idea. This is for a graduation speech. Like so I do graduation speeches at vet schools sometimes and I love it. But I always take it really, really seriously, which is probably puts way too much stress on me. But I really take it serious. I'm like, I want to say something that is meaningful to these people. And graduation is a really interesting challenge for me because I go, okay, they are at this very specific place in their career, right? They're at this transition period in their career. And I challenged myself. I was like, Andy, what can you say to these people that will help them or help some of them? Like, can you help them? At least don't bore them. Like that's the lowest bar is please don't be boring. And then beyond that, can you actually do something that is helpful? And so I like to hold myself to the higher standard. I'll take the lower standard if I have to, but I want the higher standard of like, can you actually say something to these people that helps? And so I think a lot about that. All right. So here's what I've been playing with recently. So I was reading this book. It's called Myths and Legends, and it's about sort of the backstory of where myths and legends come from. And it's sort of this sociology book and understanding humanity through the myths of various civilizations and things like that. And this guy starts talking about um, ceremonies and rituals in the past. And there's all these ceremonies and rituals where, members of a tribe, when they became adults, they would go and do this thing. And they would be dropped in the forest alone, and they would only come back to the tribe if they had killed an antelope by themselves and whatever it is. But it was sort of but they were like, you would starve to death if you didn't do it. It was like you're either in the tribe because you came back with the rabbit from the hunt, or you're out of the tribe. But when you came back, you were no longer a child. You were an adult. And this ritual meant something, like the way you were treated by the rest of the tribe changed. And your understanding of what your role was changed in this tribe. And so I think about those rituals and I think about graduation and graduation as a ritual. And so I think that we've gotten away from that in a lot of ways. And what I would sort of like to do, and I'm not sure how to articulate this, but I would say, I want to bring sort of this ritual back into graduation to say there is a transformation that happens when you graduate from veterinary school. And the big reason, the big transformation that I see, right, is as you're going through your training and your education, there's this mindset that people have, and it is that there's a right answer. There's a right answer, and you get the right answer, and you get an A, and you move on, and you get the optimal outcome, and that is what it is, right? Um, when you become a doctor, that is not the way this works anymore. And I think that's one of the big reasons we see burnout and depression in veterinarians, and especially young veterinarians, is because they think they're still in vet school when they're out in the world. And you don't get the right answer in the real world because pet owners don't pay for it. Like they can't afford the diagnostics that you need to get the right answer. And so people who are like, the right answer is what matters more than anything, and that is how I measure success. And then they're looking at a pet owner and goes, I'm sorry, I can't afford an abdominal ultrasound. And then there's this just crisis, like existential crisis for the vet who's like, but I can't get the answer if you don't do that. And I'm not going to get an A on this examination through no fault of my own. It's this really painful thing for a lot of them. And, failure in vet school, not okay, not good. Failure in practice, it's another day at the office. And this is it. It's like cases don't go your way all the time. And that, like, you're not God. You don't get to pick who gets fixed and who doesn't get fixed. And this is not a didactic exercise where you know the answer and thus the answer is done and good and the outcome is achieved. It's not how this works. And so I think that one of the things that's super painful for doctors, especially young doctors, is this discomfort they have with failure. And failure is such a massive part of practice. And so, man, that. So, going all the way back to the graduation speech, I don't. That's not the most uplifting message for a guy. It's like, dude, just tell some jokes and get us to the buffet, Andy. So I don't know that you'll ever hear that in a graduation speech. But that's what I would try to say is, great. I'm glad you're here. You need to throw away everything that got you to this point because it's going to make your life harder going forward. And what you need to adopt now is, we are going to do our best. We are going to work with what we are given. We are going to understand that a lot of outcomes are out of our control, and that we are dealing entirely in shades of gray, as opposed to black and white and red check marks, from vet school and from undergrad. So I think that that's a massive shift. But yeah, you just gotta. I think getting into that headspace is important. The truth is, get comfortable with failure. The big thing is fail fast and fail cheap. Like, fail as fast as possible. Like, if this case is going to be a nightmare and it's going to go down the tubes, I don't want to take $20,000 as people's money before it does that, and there's something to balance with that. And so, yeah, a lot of times you go, okay, well, let's see if this works, or if it doesn't want to work. But we need to figure out, hey, this is not going to work. And acceptance can often be the biggest superpower that you can have. But we don't learn from getting the right answer all that much. We learn from getting the wrong answer, or from having it not work out. That's when we really get to be better.
And how do you, when you make a mistake, you go out into a practice, you're fresh vet student, new veterinarian, and you make a mistake, you forget to run a panel, how do you think you should fix those mistakes? Like, how, because we as vet students are not good at recognizing mistakes or coming to a conclusion that, oh, we messed up. Like, how do you think we should go about coming to terms with it, I guess, besides just acceptance? What do you think would be a good coping mechanism?
I mean, the big things are, so build trust with your support staff, right? The number one, the fastest safety catch for you is having a support staff around you that will look out for you and be honest with you. But here's the thing, they're only going to be honest with you if they trust you. And so what you don't want to do is roll up and start, trying to exert dominance over the support staff, which that is a mistake that I have absolutely seen brand new veterinarians make. I think it 100% is, they're like, I'm worried about them not taking me seriously, and so I'm going to overcompensate and be a bit of a jerk. You know what I mean? Or I'm going to show them what I know. And what I would say to you is, that's a poor choice in how to play your hand. What I would say is, roll up and show them that you are going to support them, and that you want to be good to work with, and you want to do a good job, but you value and appreciate them, and that you are a new veterinarian and you would very much appreciate them sharing their thoughts on how things go with this practice. And also, like, hey, if you see anything where I might be starting down the path, I am 100% open to your input, and you please feel free to share your thoughts, and I will either explain why I'm doing what I'm doing, or I will rethink what I'm doing. You know what I mean? But I do. That's a flex that I see people make early on as a mistake. So yeah, the first thing is build trust with the support staff, and just be like, hey, I just, so you know how I like to work. I like to hear lots of different opinions. I know that practices do different things differently all over the world, and I'm sure that the way we do things here is different from how we did them in vet school. And so I am always open to questions, comments, or concerns that you might have, and I would love it if you shared them. And then when they say something to you, you can't be a jerk to them, because then you just negatively reinforce the behavior that you asked from them, and they won't look out for you in the future. So you got to build that trust. So that's the first thing, is that. The other thing I would say is, on the flip side, is, as soon as you make a mistake, you need to own it. And that is the biggest thing that screws people. Just say it. Guys, I am so sorry. I did this. I should have run this panel, and I did not run it. And call the client, and it sucks, but you should do it instead of not doing it, and waiting to see if it plays out okay. Because a lot of times, you end up eating it. And they're like, why didn't you say this 2 weeks ago when they were in? And, I thought we did blood work 2 weeks ago and I didn't hear that his kidney enzymes were all jacked up then. Why am I learning this now? And that's when you have to say, oh, yeah, I know I told you I was going to do that, but then I didn't do it. And then I didn't want to call you, so I didn't do it. And so I didn't actually get done. You don't have that conversation.
No, that sounds awful. And
That's a terrible conversation.
that sounds like a miserable conversation.
Yeah,
And
totally. Own it fast. Own it up front. Just own it.
don't let it
And
fester.
Don't. Yeah, hiding it is the worst outcome ever. Own it. Say, oops, that's my bad.
Yeah. This is kind of a good segue. We'll wrap it up here in a short little bit, but I'm gonna just ask you a couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Just because you seem to be good at those. I've listened to some of your podcasts where you answer rapid fires. I like your answers. So kind of tying into what we just talked about, teamwork. How do you think it determines your success in this field and your ability to be a team player?
Well, in the way that medicine is going and practice is getting bigger and bigger, it's becoming more and more and more important. Yeah, I would say that is it. We start talking about student debt and things like that, and how do veterinarians earn an income. You've got to leverage yourself, right? Like you've got to leverage your skills. I talked to this guy and I do the presentation and do like a half day on working the exam room effectively and exam room communication and stuff. And this guy comes up and he was like, yeah, that was really fun. That was really funny. The truth is, I think you're telling me to give everything away to the technicians. And, I've been doing all this stuff myself and they're not going to do it like I'm going to do it. And I said, well, and this guy had been practicing a long time. And he said, I don't buy what you're saying. I said, are you busy? And he's like, oh, I'm completely busy. I was like, how busy are you? Like, when do you get to work? When you go home? He's like, I'm at work at 7 a.m. I get home 8:30 or 9 o'clock. And I said, are you, you're working the whole time? He's like, oh yeah. And I said, you're done. You know that, right? Like you can't see more patients. You're done. And so like what you're creating for your practice, what you're generating, like you're tapped out, like you were capped. And so your business is not going to grow anymore, period. They just can't. You're at capacity, you're at maximum capacity. And so when I talk about the technicians, they might not do it the way that you wouldn't do it. You can train them to get them, to do it a lot closer. But your two options are that you stop growing and work like you're working now for the rest of your career, or you you figure out how to delegate and how to work with your technicians, and you can see 50% more cases than you're seeing right now because you're delegating your work, and the choice is yours. And so, yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. And the other thing is, I'll tell you too, you know, uh, it's funny. I, I started off practice with a rather simplistic view of how all this works, right? And one of the sayings that I heard as old business saying, they say, at the end of the day, it really comes down to there's only time and money, and there's only time and money. I would disagree with that today. It's been a little while, but I would say there's four things. There's time. I mean, when I say time, it's how much time are you off? Like, how much are you working? Things like that. There's vacation time. There's, as a compensation measure, there's time. And then there's money. But then there's also experience, which is what are you learning? If there's two jobs and in one of them, you're going to learn new things and you're going to pick up new skills, and there's another job and you're not going to learn new things or pick up skills, I know which one I'm taking, right? So there's experience. And then the last one is there's enjoyment. How much you enjoy the work? The team part is it can make you more money. It can make you more efficient with your time. And training people is also a great way to build experience, right? We learn when we teach. But the last part is working with a team is fun and you can get more enjoyment out of practice. And it goes back to what we talked about before about do the things that you like and you enjoy and that you're good at, and do less of the things that you're not. Well, how do you do that stuff if you don't have a team around you or if you don't work with other people? I don't know.
Hmm. I like that answer. I hope the people that listen to this take that away. I think that's important. I think like you said, people can get this sort of ego or you know d- power trip when you become a vet, and then your cards and you play into teamwork just don't go in your
Yeah.
favor.
No, they don't. But the other thing is there's a culture thing to it as well. I was just talking to somebody recently. And, the old culture of vet medicine is the self-reliant vet. And it's a podcast I did with this guy, Dr. Bob Lester. And so it'll be out it probably hopefully be out by the time this one comes out. But we were just talking about the surge in workload for vets and what it means to it. He says, the old time veterinarians, the model that vets were built on was the solo vet that drove out to the farm and did all the work by themselves, and they didn't ask for help and they didn't need help, and they did all the work and they went home, and that's what it was. And guys, like, that's our history. Like, that's our culture. Still, from what it used to be. Well, it's time for that culture to change. But there's a reason to feel that way, and there's a lot of old time vets that still very much look at that and think that's what a veterinarian is. And so it's not just, I don't know that it's necessarily a power trip. Maybe for some people it is. There are some people who see themselves as having being a organizational superior to others, and it just goes to their head, and that's not smart. But then I think a lot of it also is that there's still this cultural idea of the veterinarian as the one who does the things. And the last thing that I would say too is the way that we're trained is kind of out of date, right? There's only 2 vet schools out there that actually have integrated vet tech programs and vet student programs. And so the truth is we get educated as technicians to do all of the things. And so we're not taught how to leverage tech. So what we know is, hey, I've been taught to do the things and now you're paying me. So let me show you the things that I learned how to do. And that's kind of a weird mind twist in itself. You know what I mean? Where you go, but don't you want to see the technical skills that I learned? And they're like, no, we have technicians for that.
Yeah, I think being a tech before vet school definitely helped with that. And I think people that don't do that before vet school kind of might struggle a little bit more once they actually get into practice. But I think that's a great answer. We'll move on to the last question, and I like asking this. And it's probably going to be a very broad question, but if you had one piece of advice for veterinary students, what would it be?
That is a super broad question. Yeah, that's a super broad question. I'm going to go back to what we said earlier today, just because I think it's I think it all sort of tie back together. Always be working on something, right? Always be working on something. Always have a thing that is your thing that you tinker away on. And so always have a thing that you're working on. And I would say, if you want to take it even better, even further, I always have a thing you work on in your profession, right? Like a thing that you want to get better at, a thing that is your interest, that you can put forward and say, hey, I like this, or this is where I want to grow, or this is where I want to get better. It just gives you something to focus on and something to kind of, it's like a little fidget spinner for your life. It's just something you kind of work on. But and I'll hammer on this too. I am a believer that we should all have a thing that we do that is not work and not home. And ideally, it's something where no one cares that you're a veterinarian, right? And so it's this third space. It's not the workspace, it's not the home space, and no one cares that you're a vet. And I think that is a wonderful tip for mental health and wellness. I think too often what happens is the vet clinic becomes your life, and you're at work and you're talking to the work people and you're talking to the technicians, and then you guys hang out for beers and you're still talking about the work thing, and you're talking about the thing that happened at work, and then you go home and you talk to your spouse, and then you go to bed, and then you get up and you do the work thing again. And over time, like, that drags you down. And if you don't make some time, then you don't make other friends. You don't get involved in your community. Your community is your vet practice. They say, and a lot of people say that's great. I don't know that it is really in the long term. I think that the better play, honestly, is to do something outside of the vet clinic, where I said no one cares that you're a vet. Um, I think one of the things that we struggle with, I think we start to identify ourselves as being a veterinarian instead of veterinary medicine is what we do. I think the latter is a healthier way to look at this. It's just like, I'm a dad, and I'm a dad and a husband, and I do improv comedy, and I work in the yard, and I garden, and I hang out with my dog, and also I'm a veterinarian. That is a great, healthy way for me to look. I think a lot of people are like, I'm a veterinarian above all else. And then people say to you, well, if you really cared, you would do this for free. And your world is destroyed because your self-identity is being challenged. You're like, oh my God, I am, like, this is what I am. And they're right. And I'm going to turn this. And this is, it's like, dude, I'm like, this is my job. And it's not that I don't love it, but that enables me to set boundaries in a much more reasonable and pragmatic way. And it keeps me healthier and keeps me in the game, as opposed to burning out and quitting. So yeah, I think you should have a third space. I really encourage people to have a thing that doesn't have anything to do with medicine that you do.
I like that. Have have something else to do, and
Totally.
don't. Yeah, people forget it is your job, and I respect people that dive all in and it's their whole life, and they're super successful and they make the field better. And I think there's thresholds for some people, like you said, it helps with mental health. Tinker
Oh
away at
yeah.
something, work at
Oh
something.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you don't want to burn out. Like burning out is as much about how you rest as it is about how you work. And most of us really suck at resting. And so we need to get more intentional about disconnecting from all of this and recharging. And I think that's just a big part of it.
Yeah, it's a problem when you're on social media and all you follow are these great vets who do all these great things. So you just can never disconnect. So even when you're not doing school, you're like, why am I
Yeah.
not these people?
Yeah, dude, that's a problem. I mean, I've wrestled with my own social media presence on that. I try hard not to go over the top with this, look at me sort of attention-seeking social media stuff. And my career is built on social media. I'm not a big fan of it really much anymore. I think that there's a net negative for a lot of this. And so, when going back to what we talked about, what is happiness? And I talked about the dog with the broken pelvis and the hard conversation and, that stuff. You don't see that stuff on Instagram. What you see is people celebrating their successful surgery and the happy clients who wrote the check, for whatever. And you don't see the people who treated a parvo puppy and the owners couldn't afford anything, so they did this wonky, supportive care at home treatment. Because if you post that, people tear you up and say, how dare you treat an animal like that? And you go, what world are you living in? And so yeah, I think that a lot of the social media stuff, it makes us feel crappy about practice. Or we see vets dancing and and having fun, and you go, I don't feel that way. I must be doing something wrong. And I struggle a lot with that. And so, yeah, I think social media is, I, I I think it could be good as far as education, and it's great for sort of communicating, and it can be good for support. There's some negative pieces to social media that I do think they hit us hard, as far as healthcare providers, as far as animal advocates, and then also as far as veterinarians.
Yeah, I see that a lot with your social media pages, education, and I like that a lot. But
Cool.
I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you doing this. We'll chat again soon, I hope. And I'm really looking forward to getting these episodes out there and giving some students in the VBMA or outside of the VBMA some insider knowledge.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for having me. If you guys like stuff like this, I do have I have two podcasts. One of them is the Uncharted Veterinary Podcast, and this is all business. It's all business and management and leadership. And so everything as from when clients complain about money to having hard conversations with technicians to staff drama to clicks in your practice is all on Uncharted Vet Podcast. And so you can definitely check that out. The other one is my Cone of Shame podcast, which is much more about medicine and very, very practical medicine. And then also interesting topics just about the profession of vet medicine. I just got a new episode recorded. Dr. Lance Rosa, who is a attorney and a veterinarian, and he's also an advisor for the National VBMA and an amazing guy. He and I sit down and talk about employment contracts for veterinarians. And man, I got to tell you, if there's one podcast for vet students that I've done that I would recommend, it's that one. It's going to be brand new. It'll be coming up very soon on Cone of Shame. But yeah, before you sign that first employment contract, definitely an episode worth checking out.
Sweet. Heck yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, Dr. Roark. I'm looking forward to see where we go in the future.
Awesome. Take care, guys. Thanks for having me.
Bye.